Chapter 9. 9S's Story. Obsession. Completed. Yoha Android 9S operational. It was bright. Was the lighting broken? He would have to go report the issue to the maintenance department. Either way, resources in the bunker were very limited. Launching resources from Earth was becoming a challenge. It was all because of the enemy's air defense system. Huh? Hadn't he already succeeded in nullifying the defense system?
Good morning, 9S.
Pod 153 floated into his field of vision. Beyond it, 9S could see a sky. The view of the sky, from Earth. No wonder it was bright. Why was he sleeping in such a place?
Fighting inside the enemy unit led to the collapse of the structure. Yoha Android 9S sustained damage from the fall and was put into a state of emergency suspended animation. The landing location was deemed dangerous, and 9S was transported to the current location.
Fall? That's right, 9S thought, as he pulled himself up. A significant enemy had suddenly appeared and destroyed part of the wall and floor, right where 9S had been standing. He lost his footing, and there was nothing he could do, even though his target was staying right in front of him. This was the second time he had missed out on killing A2. Last time, the abrupt appearance of the tower had collapsed the bridge. He was frustrated that twice machines had interrupted, taking his footing away, and ended their encounter. What aggravated him even more was what A2 had said to him. "To-Be said she warned you to be a kind person." He thought it despicable that she would use To-Be's word in an attempt to deceive him. It was already bad enough that she wore an identical face, but she had used those identical lips to quote To-Be. Unforgivable. No, the person impossible to forgive was himself, his careless self, who allowed A2 to save him. He had failed to finish off 21-0, or 21B, and instead was almost killed. Right before 21B dealt the decisive blow, A2 slipped in front behind and stabbed 21B in the back. Operator.
The model 21-0 you encountered has died. Black box signal is no longer active.
9S's tone was indifferent, bluntly acknowledging the statement with an "I see." He already knew that 21-0 had died. Update me on the current situation.
The inquired number of access keys has been acquired.
Even though he had fallen from the roof, he was still able to collect the necessary items. It would have been a disaster if, on top of that, A2 had stolen the access keys. Well, if that had happened, he would have just taken them back.
Accessing the subunits and investigating the tower is now impossible.
Roger that. The end was near. The mumbling voice rang throughout the crater zone. Perhaps he had just heard it so many times and gotten used to it, but this time he didn't feel as irritated. All he wanted to do was hurry up and destroy it.
Hello, this is the tower system service.
The echoing made the words sound even more broken. The locks on all 3 subunits had been released. Finally, he could enter his original target, the tower.
Congratulations! You've unlocked all the subunits. The last prize is stored in the tower.
Prize? Wasn't it just going to be another foolish machine, enshrined as though it were some god?
We look forward to your visit.
Right as the announcement ended, machines started to fly down from the sky, attacking even though they had just said they would be looking forward to his visit. What a machine-like thing to do, even if machines couldn't talk in the first place. Get out of their way! The more enemies he destroyed, the more appeared. The tower's door had an ostentatious hacking point. While he was hacking the door, his cats would be vulnerable to attack. If there were only a couple of enemies, he could tell Pod to cover him, but it was unfeasible against a large force of machines. He was reminded of the times 2B covered for him while he hacked. He felt the glaring absence of 2B now more than ever. If this was what the enemy was aiming for, he had to admit it was effective. Shit! There's no end! If only he could destroy the enemy as quickly as a Type B, he would be able to hack the door while the enemy reinforcements were on the way. But with the battle capabilities of a Type S, it took too long to defeat an opponent. As soon as he destroyed one, another would appear in front of him. At this rate, he would never vanquish enough of the opposite force to let Pod do mop-up. Once he was out of energy, that was it. 9S panicked, thinking of a way around the situation.
Report. Signals of Allied troops.
Allied? Did it mean enemy troops? The Yoha squadron had fallen. The only troops left were infected and had gone berserk.
We knew you'd come.
9S heard his name and turned around to see Devola and Popola standing behind him. They were both holding swords. You're... The two started sprinting at the same time. They slid past the speechless 9S toward the machines. Their swords flashed. Machine heads fell to the ground.
We'll take it from here. You go on and open the door of the tower.
What was happening? He didn't understand. Why were these two helping him out? The sisters were specialized in medicine and maintenance, but certainly not in combat.
Hurry! Hack it now!
Popola yelled as she held back the enemies.
We'll tell you the details once we're in the tower.
Devola's words motivated 9S to take action. It was more efficient to enter the building than to stand and face countless enemies. Tactical theory suggested fighting in an enclosed area was advantageous for smaller groups. But the hacking process was an unexpected bottleneck. He knew that the security would be focused on defense, but the firewall was unusually robust. And the more he attacked, the more the defenses adapted to become thicker and stronger. What? What kind of firewall is this?
Report. Lockdown defense system.
Lockdown? It sounded familiar. He vaguely recalled struggling against one in the past. But that was just a feeling. He didn't have any specific memory, nor did he have a memory of ever breaking one successfully. That meant that, even if he had faced one before, he had probably failed to hack it. He had failed, his personal data had been destroyed, and he had been reloaded with the backup. How do I break it?
Prediction. Allow personal data to go rampant. The explosive energy generated from self-destruction will temporarily stun the defenses.
Self-destruction? Temporarily stun? Without a backup, self-destruction meant death. And if that were only enough to temporarily stun the enemy defenses, then it's pretty much impenetrable. Right as he shouted, he was thrown out of the virtual circuit dimension. It was a forced timeout. 9S was blasted away from the door and flung onto the ground.
What happened?
Devola ran over. He grabbed her extended hand and pulled himself up. This firewall is... Just as he was about to say impenetrable, Popola cut down a nearby enemy and tackled the door. Her scream filled the air. No! That door's protected by a self-lockdown algorithm, so breaking in is... Shut up! The reprimand was fierce enough to bring 9S to a standstill as he was running over to help.
We shall atone for the sins we committed.
Smoke was rising from Popola's hands. Ambers of electrical discharge scattered around her. The door probably inflicted physical damage as well. But what was even more dangerous was the damage to her brain circuitry. It's no use! If you did it, your circuits will... 9S's voice was drowned out by the sound of Popola's wails, as if she refused to hear what he had to say.
Devola, help me!
9S was grabbed by the arm. It was Devola. Unaware of what she was going to do, she pulled him close.
Now!
He was chucked into the air at Popola's cue and through the door. He saw Popola collapse to the ground, seemingly exhausted. Devola looked over her shoulder and quietly smiled.
Don't leave any regrets.
Devola's face disappeared. 9S stared at the door in shock. He felt erratic vibrations through his legs and the feeling of being lifted. An elevator, he thought in the back of his mind, still dazed. Why? He didn't understand. The only thing he knew for a fact was that the sisters had sacrificed themselves to help him.
Report. Discovered residual data of Popola and Devola.
Residual data? You found some? Perhaps Popola's personal data firewall had cut off when her circuits shut down. Or maybe they had created a will and sent it over to Pod before their death. Open the data.
Affirmative.
When we were created, we were the newest models. The Devola and Popola type androids were designed to serve as the observers of Project Gestalt. At the time, we had many peers, because there needed to be a pair observing each region. We were properly paired as twins so there would be a backup in case some unforeseen calamity befell one of us. The project was long-lived, spanning the course of approximately 1,000 years. And humans, who were responsible for planning the project, would be unable to lay a hand on it once it was underway. That meant we had to carry on the skilled work that humans had been doing. We would have been lying if we said we weren't anxious. But we felt a sense of honor that swept away almost any anxiety. All of us were thrilled to be the surrogates for humans. But our role as observers abruptly came to an end. It was reported that a pair of Devil and Popola models had gone mad in another city. As a result, the extinction of humanity was imminent. After that, we sent a genetic profile data of humanity to the moon as a last ray of hope. But the data was rather paltry, and having genetic profile data of various humans did not guarantee that would be able to reconstruct the species in the future. Human anatomy and cognitive schemata was much too complex to reconstruct from just genetic data. The Devil and Popola models faced hostility from all the androids who knew about the incident. Androids were built to respect and protect humans with their lives. We, Devil and Popola, were the criminals responsible for bringing ruin upon humanity. Eventually, Command decided to conceal the failure of Project Gestalt. Most of our memories encompassing the project were erased. The only memories left in our consciousness were the name of the project and the fact that our model's breakdown had led to the extinction of humanity. What our peers had experienced as observers, what we did and what we didn't do, the details of the incident, how the situation had escalated, and how we had responded, whether or not the incident was preventable. We will never know. Countless questions arose, but we will never get answers. The majority of androids constructed after the end of humanity are not aware of our sins. They don't even know the name of the project, but still, we live in exile. It's now convention for them to persecute us. And we probably deserve to be killed without reason. Or perhaps kill ourselves. At least, that's what the other androids think. But we can't die. Then we won't be able to atone. Our guilt keeps us from death. We can't die a failure. We wanted to live in a deserted area, just the two of us. But we couldn't do that either, because we needed somebody to receive our atonements. We want to be assigned the most dangerous missions. We can't die during a mission. As long as there's evidence that we served and helped someone, we will be willing to meet a final death. We just wait for that day.
That concludes the personal records of the twins, formerly known as the Observers.
I see. 9S was reminded of Popola's scream, saying they had to atone for their sins. That was a result of their guilt. He understood why they had laid down their lives to help him, and why they were always covered in scrapes and bruises, and willingly embarked on faraway missions.
Question: why did androids Devola and Popola choose to die at the same time?
In the most recent encounter, a solo escape was possible, I think. 9S interrupted Pod. For the Devola and Popola that 9S knew, death was salvation. That's why they chose to die together. This was just his hypothesis, since he wasn't sure of the situation that the original, rampant Devil and Popola had been put in. But, hand in hand, they must have overcome many challenges along the 1,000-year project. There was no chance that, even if one of them was on the verge of death, the other would leave her partner's side. Even if one of them survived without the other, all that would be left was regret. He knew that firsthand, because he himself had been forced to let go and survive. I hope you never have to know the feeling, said 9S. Pod didn't have to go through this. It was better that no one go through this pain. As he was having such thoughts, Pod again interjected with a question.
Why does this tower have a ground floor entrance? The resources are imported from the sky. It is unnecessary for there to be a pedestrian entrance.
He was reminded of the resource recovery units, where he had seen the floating spiral of machine parts being set off into the sky. He knew the parts were being delivered to the tower, but he hadn't thought of the importing process. Rather, he had cared enough to take the time to think about it.
Prediction? Trap.
I don't mind if it's a trap. He had no interest in machine remains. What he did have interest in were the machines that had yet to become remains. That was because I'm just going to kill them all. The elevator rattled to a loud stop. 9S stepped out of the elevator and entered a dim passageway. The borderline exclusively intricate decorations littering the walls, pillars, and ceilings reminded him of human civilization's architectural style of old. Moving on, the walls abruptly disappeared. The dim hall had led to a stairway wrapping along the outer wall of the tower. The stairway was missing a few steps, and gusts of wind blew up through the openings. 9S was at a considerable elevation. If he carelessly took a wrong step, he would plunge to the ground, and instant death. As he warily hopped over the missing steps, he heard a familiar drab announcement.
Hello, this is Tower System Service. We thank you for your visit from the bottom of our hearts.
Visit? Thank you? When they had bombarded him with enemies at the entrance, when they had secured the door with a self-lockdown algorithm, he was exasperated at how brazenly they spoke.
The last prize for the visitor who unlocked the last sub-unit awaits in the next room. Please enjoy.
Borrowing a human expression, he muttered, "What a one-trick pony," under his breath. There was most likely going to be another machine when he opened the door. The double door was of a towering height, forcing him to look up. At first, he doubted whether the strength of Type S would suffice to open the door, but it wasn't as heavy as it looked. A small push was enough for the door to glide open without a sound. It was a narrow room, slightly wider than the previous passageway, with a rather high ceiling. Most of all, it was dark. It wasn't pitch black, but it was dark enough to make him doubt his steps. Just as he was thinking how cumbersome it would be to fight in the confined space, he saw some object descend from the dark ceiling. The sound they made as they hit the floor was clearly different from something a machine would make. In fact, 9S recognized the cases. Type 2B? A Yoha android clad in black, short silver hair, and pale lips. It was undoubtedly 2B. He had assumed that all personal data, as well as spare cases, were lost when the bunker had exploded. He thought that reconstructing any android, including himself, would never be possible again. But there was still one way to construct 2B's cases: the transfer device. The transfer devices contained all the materials necessary to construct the cases. Since all Yoha-type androids were made from the same materials, anybody from the squadron could use a transfer device. Personal data, which was not replicable, was sent from the transfer origin to the destination. For the cases, however, only its blueprint was transferred, and it was constructed from scratch at the destination. The transfer was complete when the personal data was injected into the newly constructed cases. That's why the case's blueprint was the only information necessary to abuse a transfer device and construct as many cases as needed. The machines had infiltrated the main server, so the case's blueprint was easily accessible to them. Nevertheless, this was just a theory. They could have created an original device similar to a transfer device and constructed the 2B cases. Or they could have used a method that was completely unfamiliar to 9S. Regardless, the cases had been constructed, and 9S was now face to face with many 2Bs. Of course, their expressions were vacant, closer to puppets than the real thing. The machines most likely wanted 9S to fight with mindless drones identical to 2B, just like how they had sent Operator 21-0 to confront him. They might have been disappointed by 9S's indifference during his encounter with 21-0. Maybe that's why they were using 2B this time. 9S's perverse feelings for 2B had been exposed back when he was captured by Adam. He was fairly certain that the machines that had lured him to this tower were aware of his feelings as well. Machines were connected to one another through their network. They probably expected that, this time, they would witness a defenseless 9S being killed by 2B. They yearned to see him scream in despair, unable to lay a hand on 2B, let alone retaliate. Stupid machines. Despair? Scream? Not a chance. Not when there were so many 2Bs in his presence. I'm so glad I got to see you here. Glad that there were no 2B cases lurking behind us back. Here, she was within reach. He ripped off his goggles. He didn't have to hide anything. He didn't need any additional data. He wanted to see 2B in all her glory, directly. Watch 2B within his reach as he... All of it. He couldn't hold back his escalating laughter. I'll destroy all of you! Reconstructing 2B's castles without his permission was unforgivable. Animating her castles without his permission was unforgivable. That's precisely why he was going to destroy all of them. The only one who can destroy 2B is me. I'll tear you apart. Every last one of you! Because they were all his. He wasn't going to let anyone else have them. Not even 2B. The puppets crept toward him. Their movements were too stiff. They were, after all, controlled by machines. Their martial abilities fell short of the real 2B's. Their movements were a far cry from the fluid motion of their real counterpart. See, it's so easy to break them. I'm going to slash and crush their faces, arms and legs that look just like yours, 2B. I won't leave anything behind, so no one can look at you. 1 body, 2 bodies, 3 bodies. At this rate, it's going to end too quickly, 2B. 4 bodies, 5 bodies, 6 bodies. How many left? Oh, so it's already over.
Warning. Detected enemy signal.
Pod's brusque words interrupted 9S. Signal? There's one that's still alive? Which one is it? Which one is still waiting for me to kill it? He scanned through the corpses scattered on the ground. He saw one with his chest barely moving up and down. Found it. Even though it was struggling to move at all, it looked like it was trying to stand up. No, 2B. I told you I'd destroy all of you, didn't I? He pierced the sword through the chest. Twice, and then a third time. It was then that he heard an ominous noise. Right as he realized it was a detonator, his field of vision flashed white. Sound faded from the world around him, and he lost consciousness. Another side. A2. After destroying the Goliath-class enemy that had intruded by smashing through the walls and floor of the building, I left the large unit. Since it seemed that 9S had already destroyed the central mind of the facility, there was no reason for me to stay behind. And Pod had notified me that the massive structure, called the Tower, had activated. If the other facilities had activated, it was better to destroy them as soon as possible. As I rushed toward the tower, I ran into an unexpected pair. The twin androids from the resistance camp. I found it to collapse at the entrance of the tower. They were laying side by side. I was unable to detect Popola's signal ID. Devola's signal was so weak it was on the verge of expiring. Devola's eyes stayed shut as I moved closer. She finally opened them after I called her name a few times. Oh, it's you, A2. We left the entrance of the tower open for you. I couldn't bring myself to ask what had happened. Observing the door, I noticed that security had been broken. It was easy to guess what had happened after seeing that. 9S went ahead. 9S had tumbled down when the floor of the large unit had given way. It's not like I doubted Pod's status report, but I felt a small sense of relief after I heard Devola confirm the fact. Hey, did we do good? I gave her a nod, and Devola closed her eyes with a look of satisfaction. Then her signal disappeared. The interior of the tower was filled with corpses of Yoha androids. Signs of a frenzied battle lingered. Some of the floors with their pavement peeled and walls charred. It was probably all 9S's doing. Moving along, I came across a peculiar room. There were numerous small blocks embedded in the walls.
Prediction. A facility mimicking a library.
Library? What's that?
An information storage facility once used by humans.
What I thought were small blocks were apparently record-keeping tools called books. I forcefully hacked into a few of them and inspected the material. According to Pod, during the era of human civilization, humans had the capability to use books without hacking. It was unclear why that capability was excluded from androids. Perhaps it was a process too complex to replicate, or simply a matter of efficiency. The books that the machines had made spanned a diverse range of topics. They included records of past human societies, as well as an epidemic that had plagued human civilization. The epidemic seemed particularly atrocious, from the sheer number of records that existed about it. Records of research into its origin, treatment, and vaccination.
case records, as well as full clinical records of patients who experienced unique symptoms. It looks like the machines used this tower as some kind of information collection device, said A2. A large unit from before had been collecting machine parts and remains. It had done so indiscriminately. If, by some chance, an android corpse had been mixed in, it would have been possible to collect an enormous amount of information. Androids had a significant amount of knowledge stored in their memory. The unit jumbled all of these things together and sent it off from its roof to its tower. The tower was scraping together resources and information. What are they planning to do once they collect all of this? I found the answer in a book titled Overview of the Tower System. This facility, as a means to fulfill its launchpad function, takes materials delivered from the resource recovery units and converts them to data. The structure stemming from the 2056 novel performs filtration and compression of information with turbidity levels of less than 2,300 and transfers them to the memory of the projectile in 27 minutes and 32 seconds. Memory of the projectile? So they're making a projectile out of the resources they collect, storing the information they collect on it, and then launching it somewhere? To where? Where were they trying to launch it to? Could it be the human server on the moon? It can't be. Was it too preposterous a theory? No, they might pull it off. They might attempt it, just from the fact that they were machines. I knew that the machines were playing games with androids. My comrades and I were both victims and... Anyway, machines were responsible for exposing me to the feeling of despair. The human server on the moon was the cornerstone of android morality. If it was destroyed as well... But the machines wouldn't be able to destroy it if they didn't know the location of the human server. I've heard that transmissions from the human board were relayed through various interceptors on Earth to consider the location of the server. So it was okay. Or was it? It was certainly not okay. Ever since the Pearl Harbor descent attack, the machines had held valuable information that we weren't even informed about. It was probably easy for them to figure out the location of the server. Found it. I found the title, Port 056776 Human Server Records. The record was conveniently placed near the overview of the tower system. The machines had foreseen that it would be the next piece of information I would want after learning about the tower. The machines had not only located the human server, but they had even attempted to access it. If they wanted, they probably could have destroyed the server from the inside out. The only reason they refrained was so that they could flaunt the server's destruction to the androids. They wanted the server to blow up into pieces upon impact of the projectile, and ingrain the image into the memory of every single android looking from Earth. I needed to destroy this tower. I wasn't going to let them have their way any longer. I wasn't going to let them steal any more. But, as if to mock my resolve, another title came to my attention. The effective utilization of number 2 in Project Yoha? What is this? It seemed that the machines had predicted I would come here. Or perhaps this was meant for 9S? He most likely would have been shocked to learn the truth that was written in here. Attacker number 2, who participated in the Yoha Experimental Squadron's first descent attack, recorded mediocre performance during the simulation phase. Yet, number 2 was the lone survivor from the squadron. After analyzing the saved personal data of number 2, we discovered that number 2 was capable of excellent decision-making under extreme duress. Number 2's personal data was uploaded to the newly constructed lot of Type E models, covered in a separate section, and will oversee the preservation of confidentially for Project Yoha. Oversee. Preservation of confidentiality. 2E. The first time I met her, she was called 2E. She was tasked with the execution of rogue troops, and we would go on to confront each other multiple times in the future. When I saw her at the forest castle, she called herself 2B, most likely to keep her identity safe from 9S. When 9S, a highly specialized model, uncovered the truth about Project Yoha, he was immediately executed by 2E, the overseer of confidentiality. But 9S's abilities were so keen that it was still necessary to use a disguise. That's why 2E approached 9S as 2B. This information had been recorded in 2B's sword. Just an overview, nothing else. But I could easily imagine what she had gone through. Had 9S read this? Had he already discovered what 2B had been hiding all along? Suddenly, my surroundings shifted. I was thrown into a dimension consisting solely of white surfaces. What? What's this?
Enemy hacking attempt. Recommendation: immediate escape.
I know that! I sprinted through the white passageway. Even if I wanted to escape, I had no idea where the exit was. All I could do was keep running. I couldn't stay still.
Long time no see, number 2. No, should we call you A2 now?
I came to a stop. I knew them,
It's so nostalgic,
they said. In front of me were 2 little girls in red clothes. 2 girls in red. I knew them. During the Pearl Harbor descent attack, because of them,
We have no concept of time, but we vividly remember the time we killed all of the troops in your squadron.
The red girls were the humanoid manifestation of the machine network. They had no physical presence, and as a result were not bound to time and space, able to invade anywhere and at any time. They had probably invaded Command's main server, as well as the human server on the moon.
Yoha Squadron at Hager number 2, an experimental squadron that was the guinea pig for the real Yoha squadrons to come.
Shut up! I yelled, swinging my sword through them. There was no resistance, just like last time.
What a stubborn android you are. Didn't we tell you that you can't kill us?
I knew that, but I couldn't keep myself from attacking. They were the reason I discovered the experimental purpose my squadron served. If I hadn't found out, maybe I could have died back then, waiting for help from Command. Shit! What was I supposed to do? How could I kill them? How?